Good afternoon. This is Rich Nass, the Executive Vice President and Embedded Brand Director for Open Systems Media, and I'm here for our next installment of 5 Minutes With. And today I'm speaking with Scott Nelson, who is the CTO and Executive Vice President of Logic PD. Hello, Scott. How are you?
I'm doing well, Rich. Thank you.
Good. You're welcome. All right. So let's talk a little bit about IoT. You seem to be somewhat of an expert on the subject. So let's go back to very square one. If I ask 10 people what the definition of IoT is, I'm likely to get at least 8 different answers. What is your definition of IoT?
Yeah, it's a great question and very true. Everybody has different definitions, usually coming from the point of view from which they come in either their existing business or what they're looking forward to. I led a table discussion last week out in Silicon Valley around IoT, and for that I searched out on what are all the different definitions, and I really like the one in Wikipedia, and the reason is it kind of focuses on value, and it talks about IoT is a network of objects or things with embedded electronics, software, sensors, communications that enable, and this is the key part, to achieve greater value and service, through the exchange of data. And that's what I like. That's what we like at Logic. Our focus in IoT is on value because value drives adoption, and then value is critical to maintaining the use, i.e., preventing the churn of a product, once it's deployed in a digital economy fashion.
Okay, that's fair. But however, why is that any different from the embedded internet or M2M or any of the other catchy names that we use to describe having all these things connected?
Well, I think part of the thing that's different about that definition is that when you think about value is usually determined by humans somewhere or by an enterprise, and it really kind of helps to separate. There's a blogger from Microsoft, Clemens Vasters, who I think was the first one to post about things on the Internet versus the Internet of Things. And when you include value in your definition of the Internet of Things, I think you can avoid connecting things or just having two things talk together for the reason that they can, as opposed to the reason that someone really values what they do. And so, in our world, the value focus keeps the people in the loop and focuses on the people. That's a common thread for us in IoT, is making sure that we start with the users or the enterprise buyers of the proposition. Otherwise, you end up with a lot of development and deployment that does not sustain itself once it gets to market.
Okay, you brought up people. I would like to ask you a couple of people questions, if that's okay.
Yes.
Okay. You're the HR director at your company, and you get a candidate come in for a job, for an engineering job. What is the one question you're going to ask him where you say, this is a guy I really want to work for my company?
Right. Since I only have one question, I have a question that gets me the answers that I really want. The answers I want a problem solver who's a team player and has a lot of enthusiasm about technology and just growing as a professional. So the one question that I ask is, why do you want to work at Logic PD? And by asking that one question, I usually will get 3 things. I get, do they really understand what we do and what our value? Does what we do align with their personal goals? Because if they explain the why, and if I ask the why again, they'll have to tell me why what Logic does aligns with their personal goals. And typically in answering the question, I'll get a good judgment of the passion they have towards the same thing about which Logic is passionate. And so when I get one question, that would be the one question I would ask.
Okay. All right. Along those same lines, we're talking about our younger people here. You're the dean of the electrical engineering department of some major university. What are the 2 things that are must-have in your department?
Yeah. The first is actually, it's a question I do a fair amount of mentoring at both the U of M and at my alma mater, St. Olaf College. And one of the students asked me, I'm a physicist by training, and when they ask me, what would you take, what would you do, what would you take here to make sure that, I have great opportunities? And I always answer the same thing, and that's statistics. And statistics is a fundamental capability that's used in all parts of engineering, all parts of business. And it's becoming even more important today, as we have deployed the Internet of Things and we start gathering data and we start looking at the analysis of data. And so I'm a really big supporter of understanding the fundamentals of statistics and all the things that drive its use in analytics. The second thing I would probably focus on today as you said double E department is signal processing. And we find signal processing to be a very valuable capability here at Logic. It's valuable because of everything being RF. And good signal processing minds understand both the analog and the digital and the transition between the two. And then the other area where signal processing is really critical is the sensing. And of course IoT is when you get to the edge, it's all about sensing. So if I'm advising a young person about what should you understand to make sure you're valuable in this technology age in the future, those would be the two things I would tell them.
Okay, and would you advise a young person who's thinking about a career choice to go into engineering as something that they would do for the rest of their lives?
Oh, absolutely. I think there's a shortage of good engineers, at this point in time, and it's going to get worse as we go forward. It's relatively, relative to many of the other curricula, it's a hard curriculum. It requires a lot of problem solving and a lot of passion, a lot of excitement. Makers, are great future engineers and people with that attitude. But I think the engineers, create a tremendous amount of value in the things that they create, the builders and of the future. And they're also, I recently read, there's a lot of the top technology company CEOs were engineers as they were trained. I mean, they have good the skills of engineering, often lead to good skills in business as a whole.
It's interesting you bring that up, and I think that's a trend that's actually swinging back, where we had gotten away from technical people leading companies, where it was more financial people, and now there seems to be a trend of people with technology backgrounds are becoming the leaders of these companies.
Yeah, I believe that's true, yes.
That's great. Our 5 minutes are up. That was Scott Nelson, the CTO and Executive Vice President of Logic PD. Thank you for your time, Scott.
Okay, thank you.